Earlier this year, Tarantino flat out said movies are dead. It was bad enough in 2019, and that was the last fucking year of movies. And honestly, while I was putting this list together, it started feeling like he wasn't wrong. Sure, we still get some good stuff every now and then, but overall, the 2020s so far have been mostly garbage. Nobody asked for. Remakes piled onto remakes, zero originality, massive budgets poured down the drain. So here's where we're at. 10 of the most hated movies of the 2020s. This one's supposed to be an intense revenge thriller. Carey Mulligan plays a woman who's basically out to punish every guy she thinks ruined her friend's life. Sounds promising, right? But the thing is, the movie never stops screaming in your face about how important it thinks it is. There's nothing subtle or smart here, it's just pure Hollywood posing. Strong independent woman takes vigilante justice into her own hands with this complicated master plan because of course she has one. And the worst part? It pretends to tackle a serious topic but never actually digs into it. It treats real-life issues like flavor of the month stuff. People either hated it for being so direct and angry, or because they felt it was cheap, shallow garbage dressing itself up as important feminist commentary. Critics who hated it called it anti-man, because basically every guy is evil and every woman is heroic. Honestly, Netflix's 13 Reasons Why covered similar ground, and it did a better job. But here's Hollywood for you. Of course, it grabbed 5 Oscar nominations. This was peak post-Me Too, remember? Won Best Original Screenplay, obviously. Because Hollywood loves patting itself on the back. Emerald Fennell again, 3 years after Promising Young Woman, with another movie trying way too hard to shock people. You've got Barry Keoghan playing this weird guy who worms his way into a rich family, and it escalates from there into some totally disgusting scenes. I mean, there's literally a scene of Keoghan's character drinking bathwater mixed with bodily fluids, and somehow that's not even the worst part. It ends with him literally humping someone's grave. Critics were split. Some thought it was edgy satire. Others called it an uninspired ripoff of The Talented Mr. Ripley. It was basically heading for box office oblivion until Prime Video streamed it. Then suddenly TikTok got involved, turning those gross-out moments into viral memes, racking up billions of views. And honestly, if Saltburn becoming a huge hit on TikTok isn't the perfect snapshot of movie culture in the 2020s, I don't know what is. Still, no Oscars this time around. Couple BAFTA nominations, a couple Golden Globes, but 0 Oscar noms. Weirdly enough, Ridley Scott actually defended this mess, calling it the best film he saw all year and comparing Barry Keoghan to Joaquin Phoenix. So maybe Ridley's losing it too. This sequel felt more like some cruel prank than an actual movie. Todd Phillips basically flipped off anyone who enjoyed the first one. It's part courtroom drama, part musical, and manages to fail at both spectacularly. Lady Gaga's completely wasted too. The studio poured $200 million into this, and it barely scraped past that at the box office. Lost Warner Brothers almost $150 million total, making it one of 2024's biggest bombs. Audience scores were brutal. A D Cinema score and a Rotten Tomatoes audience rating hovering around 31%. Even Batman Forever did better than that. Tarantino actually loved Joaquin Phoenix's performance, called it one of the best he's ever seen. He said Todd Phillips basically acted like the Joker himself, blowing through Warner Bros.' cash, flipping off comic book fans, Hollywood, basically everyone. Tarantino sees this as some nihilistic genius move. But everyone else just hated it. Even Vanity Fair straight up called it startlingly dull, a pointless procedural that clearly had nothing but contempt for its audience. This was one of those movies everybody either called a masterpiece or absolutely despised. Nothing in between. The story starts with a murder spree and some bizarre sexual stuff involving a woman and a car. Yeah, a literal car. And then somehow moves into something weirder, hard to even put into words. When it won the top prize at Cannes, a lot of people lost their minds, mostly because no one expected a movie that got this many low scores to actually win. At Cannes, there's this critics grid every year, 10 top critics rating films from 1 to 4. And this film got a miserable 1.6, one of the absolute lowest. And yet, somehow, the jury picked it anyway over a more universally loved film like Drive My Car. And of course, people completely freaked out. Critics who hated it called it a blend of cheap horror and porn, wondering how the jury possibly thought this deserved the Palme d'Or. Audiences felt the same, calling it pretentious, unbearable, pseudo-arty garbage. The backlash was massive. Even Telluride Film Festival straight up refused to screen it that same year. This is basically the definition of a film that's deliberately offensive, weird, and unpleasant. Some loved it, but a ton of people really, truly hated it. Blonde got itself slapped with an NC-17 rating, something that rarely happens these days, especially for a mainstream Netflix film. It tried to dive deep into Marilyn Monroe's tragic, miserable life, graphically and relentlessly showing how she was exploited, abused, and generally mistreated by powerful Hollywood guys. Most of the hate here was aimed at director Andrew Dominik. Before release, he openly bragged the film would offend everyone, practically daring people to get upset. And then came his infamous BFI interview with journalist Christina Newland. That one was a freaking disaster. Dominik called Marilyn and her friends well-dressed whores and openly reduced Monroe to nothing more than a tragic image. He straight up called the film a rescue fantasy and punishment fantasy. As you can imagine, the public backlash against Dominik exploded. People called Blonde cruel, unnecessary, exploitative. Basically 2.5 hours of using Monroe's trauma for shock value. On top of everything else, viewers just found it boring and exhausting. Right now, its Rotten Tomatoes scores hover around a miserable 36% audience. Exactly the movie Dominik promised, something that offends absolutely everyone. Disney just won't stop ruining their own classics. Before they bombed spectacularly with Snow White this year, they'd already completely tanked Pinocchio. It looked promising enough on paper. Robert Zemeckis directing, Tom Hanks starring, and a $150 million budget. What could possibly go wrong? Everything went wrong. This movie felt completely misguided from the very first scene. Zemeckis used to make classics, Back to the Future, Forrest Gump, Cast Away, but somewhere along the line he lost it. The magic's gone, replaced by some uninspired, soul-crushing cash grab nonsense. Even Tom Hanks couldn't save it. It ended up dumped onto Disney Plus because Disney knew damn well it would have flopped hard in theaters. They were already burned by their live-action Dumbo disaster from 2019, and then COVID gave them the perfect excuse to quietly push it onto streaming. But no matter how quietly they released it, people still saw how bad it was, and hated it immediately. Critics and viewers absolutely tore into it. Rotten Tomatoes has it at an embarrassing 27%. Regular people online were even harsher. One person straight up called it uninspired f***ing dog shit. Everyone agreed these Disney remakes were pointless, greedy attempts at squeezing money from nostalgia. Netflix blew $200 million on this garbage. $200 million. And movies like Red Notice are exactly what's wrong with cinema right now. Huge budgets, famous actors, tons of CGI, but zero personality. Netflix didn't stop there either. They still churn out bland movies with ridiculous budgets all the time. But Red Notice was one of their first, and man did it piss people off. Did that giant budget buy them respect? Not even close. It's sitting at 37% from critics on Rotten Tomatoes, 2.5 stars on Letterboxd. Yeah, Netflix bragged about their viewing numbers, claiming it got 231 million views, their biggest ever. But who even cares when the movie is this forgettable? Stars Dwayne Johnson, Ryan Reynolds, and Gal Gadot are chasing around some stolen jeweled egg. Johnson's an Interpol guy, Gadot's the thief. Reynolds is another thief forced to team up. It's just twist after pointless twist until it's totally impossible to care. Richard Lawson from Vanity Fair nailed it, calling it limp and dull, a perfect showcase of the worst sides of its stars. And Tarantino went off about it too. He called out Netflix directly for dumping $50 million paychecks on Ryan Reynolds movie after movie. Films, he says, are so disposable, they don't even register in pop culture. Tarantino literally said, "Those movies don't exist in the zeitgeist." He's completely right. Remember when Sony gave us Morbius, and at least we got some memes out of it? Well, with Madame Web, they didn't even manage that. Madame Web was just pure garbage. Nothing funny, nothing redeeming, just total embarrassment from start to finish. Set back in 2003, Dakota Johnson plays Cassie Webb, who gets psychic powers and tries protecting 3 young women from Ezekiel Sims, a guy who's traveling from the future to kill them before they become Spider-Women, who eventually kill him. Critics didn't hold back. Rolling Stone's David Fear called it a genuine Chernobyl-level disaster, just getting worse every second you watch. People called it meme fodder, camp classic, and straight up one of the worst films in recent memory. Another review said it belonged at the very bottom of Walmart's bargain bin. Dakota Johnson herself admitted she wasn't even surprised by the terrible reception. She literally said the movie changed so much during filming, it turned into something completely different and disastrous. It's not nice being part of something ripped to shreds, but I can't say I don't understand. And Sydney Sweeney mocked it publicly too. It bombed brutally at the box office, barely scraping $100 million off a budget around $80 to $100 million, one of the biggest flops last year. Of course, it won big at the Golden Raspberry Awards. Worst Picture, Worst Actress for Johnson, and Worst Screenplay. Totally deserved every single one. But honestly, critics were completely right. The entire film's just Warner Brothers showing off every IP they own. Batman, Casablanca, Matrix references crammed into this ridiculous embarrassing. Broadway fans loved Dear Evan Hansen, huge musical, Tony Awards, devoted followers. Then Hollywood adapted it, and suddenly it became everyone's favorite punching bag. Ben Platt was 27 years old, still playing the teenage Evan Hansen, and they tried using makeup and wigs to hide it. It looked completely bizarre. Social media ripped it apart immediately. Platt's awkward, overaged teen look became an instant meme. People just couldn't handle it. One reviewer described it as perfectly dunkable for the internet crowd. It didn't help that Ben Platt's own dad produced it, making the whole nepotism angle impossible to ignore.